What if the reason everything feels urgent is because nothing is actually clear? In today's conversation, we're talking about how you stop spinning, clarify your priorities, and create simple structure in your business so things can finally move forward. My guest today is Natasha Kasimtseva. Greetings, Natasha.
Oh my gosh, Selena, thank you so much for having me on your show. I've been wanting to join you for so long. I'm so excited that we're doing it. And before I jump in, I again wanted to introduce myself. I have a Russian last name, so it's really hard to. I had, how many years practicing how to say it. So I'm Natasha Kasimtseva. I'm a founder and CEO of Your Project Doctor LLC, and I'm an advisor on execution and strategy. What that means is I help founders, business owners, business leaders we figure out why their execution keeps breaking, right? Why vision and the planning doesn't match the result. And that's the trend and the gap I see so often. I have a very rich career and very rich exposure to many different industries, the latest being regulated industries and financial institutions, but I also worked and advised in the space of entertainment and hospitality as well as manufacturing, right? So many industries. I also have exposure to international audience. I have LinkedIn learning courses and I have over, I think right now it's about 400,000 learners across 9 different languages. So, and having exposure as far as the industry and as far as the international, professionals, I can tell 100% that this gap is so universal. And that's why I think it's so important to talk about it and to figure out how to close that gap. And that's where I step in, right? I step in and I help leaders figure out the structure that will support that connectivity, that connection between that continuity, right? The word that we both love. Well, at least I really like continuity between strategy and execution. And yes, so at the end of the day, it all boils down to clarity. So the um, a lot of times people, especially when you run your own business, if you're a solopreneur or small business owner, um, you think that busyness equals progress, right? And it's not always it's actually not the same thing, right? The question is, how do we figure out when we are busy versus when we, apply effort to actually move the needle and get to where we need to be strategically.
Absolutely. Why, thank you, Natasha, for that lovely introduction. It's so great to have you here. So, darling, you've shared a little bit with us, but tell us, darling, how do you show up in the world?
Oh gosh, I'm a structure person. So in I'm just gonna tell you about my personality first, and then things will make sense. You're like, yep,
That's a good one.
we know exactly why she's good at what she's doing. So I'm in my personal life, I prioritize calm and joy.
Mm,
So, and also control over how I spend my time and resources. And from the personal level, my strong, kind of my core belief is our time is the most essential. It's the gift that we have, right? It's one of the resources that we're not going to get back.
mhm,
So it all stems from this, right? So when I assess what I do with my day, right, I always, or even when I go shopping, I measure everything in my time, right? So, and my time is my life. So that kind of created the framework, even in my personal life, where it's, for me, it's very necessary. It's just part of like DNA of how I live my daily life is to constantly reassessing, right? The what I do, like the business, right? The effort, what's actually what I spend my time on versus my personal goals and priorities, which is, family, sense of calm, sense of control, joy, those things. And that translates into how I show up in business. And another side of my personality is I'm a very analytical and structured thinker. I naturally create systems. I create systems in my home. I create systems when I take my daughter to school. I create systems when I manage, my dog, right? Just anything that has to do with personal management, right? How you manage your personal money, etc. Um, I'm a strong believer that a lot of things, again, just to free up your mental space, can be automated, right? By creating systems, by creating processes that will help you move faster and further, right? So, and that translates obviously in professional life. So, my my very first professional aspiration was to be a teacher.
Oh, really?
So that again, something that shows up again and again, and as I move through life, connecting with people, sharing, right, sharing the expertise and upskilling, right, giving critical skills to people around you who can, something that and successful in, and sharing that gift with others to benefit their life. So originally, right, there was an elementary school teacher that was my first career choice, and then eventually, as things progressed, I moved into business process reengineering and IT and implementations of ERP systems, which again, right, is like very heavy on
Right.
systematic thinking, analysis, data, things of that nature, analyzing, right? If we do a process, be it like in personal life or in business, right? Where do we start? Why
Right.
do we start it? How
Right.
do we move from A to B? What decisions need to be made? How do we know that we're successful, right? What's the definition of done, right? How do we know that we are done and we are ready to move on?
I love this.
um, so, anyways, that's a little bit of a story of my kind of personal roadmap and how I show up in life from a personal perspective, and how to kind of how that calling translates into my how I show up professionally, and how I advise now business leaders and business owners in structuring and scaling their own operations, their own businesses, from by connecting strategy and execution, making sure that the uh, the vision and what actually gets done, and how money and time of you and your team and your decision makers, how all of those resources are spent, and whether it's something that will give you progress versus business.
Natasha, that is so profound, and it makes me wonder what led you on this path. So teaching initially, and then you found more of the kind of process work and the project management work and all of those things. Who were you as a young person? Like, what was going on? Were you that structured and all of the things? I'm just so curious. Like, when did you know that, like, yes, this this can this can be like a profession? Because it feels like it's innately, like it's oozing out of you. And I'm just curious because I know for me, I was always like teaching and telling someone what to do and coaching and all of the things. So I'm just very curious on like what your childhood like was like, and what people were saying kind of about you. Like, how did you know, darling?
How did I know? Yes, the structure and project management and like getting things done. Or I just you can bleep it, but getting shit done.
Yes. Hey, that's my
That's
word all day.
that's something that I've been told radiates, right? That's part of my aura. People, like, even before I open my mouth, I guess people, by just observing how I move through life, recognize that. And it's funny how it just, yes, that's my career choice.
Yes.
Um, so let's see. I'm thinking about back when I was like a little girl. I remember very vividly because I was going back to, hey, what I'm doing in life, does it actually support my dreams and support, my goals? And
Yeah.
I was thinking about back to my childhood dreams, and I vividly remember that when I was a kid, it's not, I don't remember being, teaching, people things, but there are certain things that I loved a lot, and I think I definitely advised others how to do it.
Oh, I can see that.
Yeah, so. I remember when I loved climbing trees. Oh gosh, it was like I loved climbing trees. Two things, climbing trees, right, three things. Climb, climbing trees, running. I loved to run and dogs. Those
Mm.
three things that I just absolutely adored. And I could do, I could, climb trees, run around the neighborhood, and then play with dogs forever.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, I remember actually I mean, we just moved and I was brand new and it was like we lived right by the huge park with a lot of trees and I remember making friends with this local boy. Well, he was my neighbor. And I never climbed a tree before. And he was the one who taught me how to climb a tree.
Mm.
And the science of climbing a tree, you need to understand the tree. You need to know what type of tree you're climbing.
But of course.
So here's like a little advisory session on climbing trees, right? Because different trees have different density, right? Like certain, you have to understand if they will hold your weight, but those are not the words that we used. It's children, but this is
Right.
like intuitively, literally, you assess the tree, you see the structure of the branches. Yeah, I'm going to use this example for my strategy activation framework because it's exactly how my brain thinks, right? You
Right.
assess and then you measure, understand like where, how far you want to climb, right? And then you measure what are those branches, right? Where do you need to step to get to where you need to go,
Right.
right? And what happens when you climb trees actually is so you have a lot of clarity once you're outside the tree and you sizen it up and you're like, okay, I know how to get to the top. However, if you ever climb a tree and it's a tree with like rich, thick canopy, once you start climbing, a lot of times you don't see the top.
Wow.
You get very often you get lost because you don't quite see where that point was. So
And I can
you
see
have to
that when you're
be
in the thick of it too, right?
exactly,
Mhm.
exactly, right? So it's just like such a perfect example of this metaphorical space where a lot of times, and I kind of pivoted back to the business leaders, right? A lot of times, what I see when I work with business leaders is they have a lot of clarity when it comes to vision, right? Vision, ideas. There is no lack of that where the drift happens, right? Where the misalignment happens is once you start climbing, right? Even the plan can be, they can even, sometimes if it's a more advanced organization or more mature process,
Yeah.
you would see a good plan. Okay, so this is our vision, this is how we plan to execute our strategy. However, in reality, once you start, quote unquote, climbing the tree, depending on the situation and all the different variables, constraints, things like that, once you start climbing, that might give you so many surprises and that connection between, remembering what your vision was, remembering what your plan was, and adjusting with new information as you start executing, right, to continue maintaining that connectivity between vision and the plan and the original goal with your effort as you move toward that goal is what I excel in. So I guess it
Absolutely.
all started when I was 5 years old.
5 years old. That is incredible. And you are amazing at it. It's your project doctor. This makes me think about my own journey because I'm in the thick of it right now. I've made a pivot, all of the things. And what are some of the tools or the strategies that need to be used to help, especially us small businesses out there, like kind of stay the course and the goal? Is that the business plan? Is that more of an active working plan? Like, what does that really look like, or what tools?
I think so. I will challenge because I'm a tool driven person myself, right? I was like, okay, what's the right tool?
Right.
And I'm going to challenge right now my own thinking and maybe your thinking and maybe, anybody who thinks the same way is
Mm-hmm.
actually, it's not the tools. Like,
Mm-hmm.
if you want to start with tools, don't start with tools.
Ooh.
um, Start with simplicity. I think, and it shows up in different ways, regardless whether you're solopreneur, small business owners, or enterprise organization. Actually, I observe that show up in different ways everywhere.
Mm.
Is we are, maybe it's a societal structure that we are operating in. We all hoarders. We like to hoard.
Oh my gosh.
We like it
I
just
feel
we
so seen.
well, that's, and then I'm not saying it in any, judgmental way or anything like
Absolutely.
that. I'm just saying it in a very observational way because
Mhm.
we operate in systems that influence us, right? And they influence, any everything, right? How we, which, toothbrush we choose,
Yeah.
toothpaste, and which app or software we choose to use for our accounting or project tracking or, work management, you name it, CRMs, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, uh, to answer your question, my challenge to all of us is simple. Define what simple feels like to you and then go from there.
Mm.
Um, for me, this what simple looks for me is when I think about my own strategy to execution connectivity,
Yeah.
I like to give myself, we all say, don't put yourself in a box, don't put yourself in a box. So I actually do put myself in a box, and that's what I mean by saying that.
Mm-hmm.
I give myself a very structured framework in a sense that, okay, those are three priorities that I'm working on
Okay.
within this time frame, right? And you can determine which time frame works for you. For me,
Mm-hmm.
usually it's it depending on what your business is and how your cycles are. For big enterprises, and we all know, for if we read quarterly reports, if we work for a company, or if we invest in stock, we know that there are annual cycles, there are quarterly planning cycles,
Right.
things like that. As a business owner, your own business owner, solopreneur, the beauty is like we can define what it is, right? We are not
Absolutely.
bound to measure our life or how we set our goals by anything but your own imagination. So keep it simple and keep it small. And that's another thing this is another very challenging shift in
Mm-hmm.
how we approach it, because again, as someone who grew obviously grew up in this world and had a very rich corporate career,
Mm-hmm.
I'm conditioned, my brain, as a business owner, right? We attend seminars, we go to the retreats, we are part of that ecosystem. And a common phrasing or common sort of call to action that we hear year after year after year is think big, right? Think big, dream big.
Absolutely.
And
Yep.
this is
Mm-hmm.
beautiful, right? Because it serves a person of making us, expand, right? Making us, it's a really wonderful tool to, kickstart your, visionary thinking, your imagination, right?
Yeah.
Which is so important to, especially if you own your own business, if you lead in your own teams, right? You do have to have that muscle developed to think
Yeah.
big. However, when it comes to actually getting things done, we operate that because thinking big is a world of imagination, right?
Absolutely.
Is a world of vision, which is super important. However, we exist and we get things done in the real world where we only have 24 hours a day, right? We have a set amount of, we have budgets. We have, if you're a solopreneur, it's literally your own
Right.
time,
Mm-hmm.
and you're an own person. You can think of different ways to augment, to outsource, to delegate, right? So there are things that you can do to create more time, right? There are things they can do to create more money, right? As seeking funds,
Right.
right? But we're not talking about that. We're talking about, hey, what can I do today? And the first thing is simple and small.
I love that.
And again, for me, is take out of the list. Well, first of all, if you don't have a list of things that you're working on, make a list. And kind of going back to the tools, keep it simple. There are a lot of tools out there, right? And a lot of free tools, a lot of tools that you pay money for. The more usually the fancy functionality means the higher price tag. I don't want to dilute our conversation by going into like that space,
Mm-hmm.
but It can be, just don't use a sticky note. Selena, I have a I have a version to sticky notes. Just, pull up an Excel spreadsheet. If you don't like Excel, pull up Google Docs.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't have a list, and make a list of everything that you were working on. I think, Selena, in your world, I think when you worked with me, as a, business coach, we did one of the exercise that you did was time audit,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that's very similar in the sense that just accept the fact, if you're a solopreneur, small business owner, accept the fact that you have 24 hours a day, okay? we we all usually it's uncomfortable to think about it, right? Because we don't want to think about limitations and constraints and things like that, because it puts us, it might feel like it puts us in the deficit mindset, right?
Right.
However, I just want to, like, challenge everybody and say, you know what, just let's take a breath. And thinking about time constraints is just level setting expectations, right?
Mm-hmm.
We do want to be in, and we want to expand, we want to grow, we want to think big. Yes. But we also want to be loving to ourselves and our teams. And that means being realistic of what's possible, right? And then how do we know what's possible is by asking a question. And that's something that I learned from you, Selena, and I keep using it because it's so good. There's a book that you recommended some time ago, yeah, many years ago. And like the question is, what needs to be true, right? For example, I need to sign one more client. What does that mean, right? We start with definition of success. What does that mean? Is it, a letter of intent? Is it a handshake? Is it, a note on a napkin? Is it a formal DocuSign contract that's in your inbox, right?
Right.
And then
This is so
what needs to be true for this to happen? And once you start asking questions, what needs to be true, time, time will be like a factor in that, right? So, and then, next, other resources. But yes, to answer your question, keep it simple. Keep it
I love it.
simple. Make a list and then define what simple means for you. Again, for me, it would be, hey, what are those three things that I'm working on or my team is working on within this 30 days or 90 days? Or it could be more iterative. It could be a week, two
Mm.
weeks, right? So this, we have full freedom of defining what that is. My advice is simple and small.
I really love you saying small because you kind of got to define small also as
Exactly.
well, because small for one person may not be small for the next. When you say that to me, what that says to me is on a daily basis, right? What are the three things I'm doing for this day? And I have three areas that I put things in. One is work,
Mm-hmm.
one is life and relationships, and then the
Mm-hmm.
other is personal.
Mm-hmm.
So my self-love care. So I'm always looking at that. And in those three areas, I also have something else that I drill down to: what's going to get me to the cash, what's going to keep me calm, and what's in my capacity in those
Beautiful.
areas as well. And so that helps me kind of fall in line with
Around
keeping it
yourself.
simple. Yeah, and keep it small as well, I feel like. And then there's so many lists.
Okay, so another thing that I wanted to, okay, so that's the, okay.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just, oh, this is so good. Um, all right, so we talked about, make a list, right? Don't keep your things on sticky notes, right? That list it could be on your app, it could be, in my business, my teams we use monday.com. It's not necessary. It can be any type of, it can be a Word document.
Right.
It could be, your chat GPT chat where you just, narrate, you just tell it and it'll create a list saying, hey, those are the things that I'm working on, and it will create a list for you.
And it could that kind of become a backlog that's sticking in my head. Like make that your backlog, and then as you check things off the list, you can go
Mhm.
back to the backlog and
That's okay. That's very important. That's a really, really, really good question.
Mm.
So in my work, I'm gonna pivot a little bit into like my business language that I use with my business clients. As I go through this work with my business clients, I apply a framework that I created, right? It's called Strategy Activation Framework, and in that framework, I have 4 stages. And the first one is actually let me name them first, and then because the first one actually speaks exactly to what you asking
Mm.
me about. So the first stage is assess, then prioritize. The third is architect, and then the fourth one is activate. So we start with assessment, and that's exactly what, in everyday language, what we're talking about is make an inventory of everything you're working on.
Right.
Um, and again, we just want to make it super simple because the thing is, if you start complicating things for yourself, and it's like, well, yeah, I want to make the list, but I think I need to decide on like the tool or the software first. Oh my
Uh,
gosh, that's analysis paralysis, right? Like that could be another reason why things don't get done because we kind of create artificial dependencies for ourselves, right? Just keep it
right.
simple, make a list. After that list is done,
Mm-hmm.
um, again, in the business world, it's going to be actually, it's very interesting, right? Because I started my work started with enterprises, right? Transformational initiatives, and those are, 1, 2 year programs, right? Speaking of what definition of small is,
Right.
right? So the scale of those is, years. And then, the time and budgets are in millions, number of people involved are in hundreds, blah, blah, blah. So, and then there will be a list of initiatives, right? Hey, we have, I don't know, 100 transformational initiatives. That's a lot.
Right.
However, and they was like, well, yeah, those are complex. Obviously enterprises have harder time, blah, blah, blah. No, actually, as a small business owner, I think that's even more challenging because if you think, so, well, I'm not a big business, but hey, even as a small solopreneur, we
Yeah.
have to get things done. But we have to get things done with smaller resources. We don't have the same luxury of,
Right.
augmenting
Mm-hmm.
to, 5 different countries or whatever that is, right? So, as a small business owner, you have to be even better at prioritizing than anybody who sits in the corporate seat. So
Right. I would
we
agree.
have to be super duper precise as a surgeon. So after you make a list, kind of go bringing it back to our world of small business ownership and solopreneurship is
Mm-hmm.
after the list is done, then it's prioritization, right? So we're not making this as an operational model yet. We're just in the assessment. So you make a list and then you prioritize, right? Um, you asked me about business plan earlier. Business plan really helps, like if you have it. But I would assume sometimes, right, if you're just starting your business or you're not much, your business is not super mature, or you didn't have to go through like a formal funding request, right?
Right.
Because through certain processes, you're kind of forced to have certain things already in place, right? But let's assume you don't have this fancy document called business plan, right?
Right.
Just write down your goals, right? And you can call them strategic goals. Write down your strategy, and those could be, hey, for this year, I plan to do, and keep it simple. Don't make a list of 15 things. Just 3, 5 things should be plenty, right? So you have your goals, right, and have your list of all the things that you're working on, and then just line item by line items, very simple question. Hey, I'm working on, like, for example, for me, like, okay, I'm deciding if I want to keep Monday.com or if I want to transfer to a different software.
Mm-hmm.
Does it matter to my strategic goal? Would it create, my strategic goals like are centered around um, clients right now, right?
Right.
My clients, it doesn't matter to them
Right.
if I use Monday.com, Jira, or Excel spreadsheet. It
Mm-hmm.
has no impact, right? So that is a good example of the project or an action item or a line item of work that I'm allocating my resources and my brain power to that doesn't move the needle. So that is, just cross it out. You don't have to like delete it. It can eventually be in your backlog, but just cross it out. It doesn't matter today. Um, Right. So I just go down this list and then simple question. Okay. So, and that's why I encourage everybody to have a really small number of goals because again, just it's easier to evaluate if you have one, two, three goals, right? It just say, hey, this line item does this move the needle for any of those goals. If the
Hmm.
line item, if the work that you're doing is not producing results that support any of those goals, just cross it out. It might be important work. It might matter to you for, 10 different reasons. But
Right.
today, right, for this exercise, it doesn't matter. So once you kind of cross those out, and that's, another way to call it is what are we saying no to? And pretty much
Hmm.
we're saying no to everything unapologetically
I
that
like it.
doesn't support your strategic goal. And that is, oh my gosh, this is so liberating because when it comes to decision making, like analysis paralysis is a really, really, especially for if you're someone who likes to analyze different data points, if you like to kind of seek out different perspectives and
Right.
just weigh things out. This is a very smart way to go about certain decisions, right? It creates, more controlled way of moving forward.
Hmm.
However, right, the kind of the dark side of that is analysis paralysis, where no decisions are made and there's no progress. So this approach, keeping it small and keeping it simple, gives you kind of that permission slip, right? Um, Selena, yeah, I love that approach that you apply in your work. It gives you permission
Yeah.
to be strategically unapologetic about saying no.
Absolutely. And we
So
need that.
once Yeah, and then I just want to wrap up really quick. After that, you start executing on those work line items, and then you can kind of make this approach operational, right? Because but then one of the two questions that you need to answer for
Hmm.
yourself is to make this structurally supportive instead of burdensome. Two questions are critical.
Hmm.
First one, and again, keep it simple, keep it small. How does work make it to this list? Because you have to be very strict, I would say. Yeah, you have to be protective of that priority list.
Got you.
So to make on your list think about it as a super duper VIP list, right? So if it's a VIP list, by definition, not everybody can get on.
All right. How does it make it to the VIP list?
Yeah, so
Okay.
how does this work make it to the list, right? So, and it could be, in my consultancy, in my advisory work, that kind of that those decisions and that operational structure sits in when we architect, right? So we actually create decision structures, we create prioritization models, but that's more for mature organizations, right, with multiple departments, with when you have complex decision making structures,
Hmm.
things of the nature. If you're a solopreneur or if you have a smaller team, that's a little bit more straightforward. You just need to define what that means for you, right? Okay, so for the work to make it on the list, this needs to be true, right?
That's a good practice, though, to kind of harness yourself too. I love
Yeah,
this.
yeah.
Okay.
What needs to be true for this work to make it on the list? So that's one. But then the equally important question, and those
Hmm.
two questions, they're married. They are not even married. They're like part of the same heart, left and
Okay.
right. So one is how do things make it on the list? However, this doesn't matter if you don't have the other side. And the other side, if the thing makes it on the list, how do we know what makes it out? Because we're not adding anything on the list before either finishing things that are on the list or kicking them out of the list. So it's pretty much we're keeping the so that the priorities
All right.
at a certain, so there is a baseline, right?
Oh, this is good.
And
Mm.
that is very critical because what happens if you are um, think of I don't know, like a balloon, I think is a good example, right? So there's a, obviously you can blow up a balloon, but it's not, balloon is not designed for flow, right? Balloon is designed to hold. And then when it's overfilled, it bursts,
Birth.
right?
Yeah.
So when we're designing our strategy to execution framework, we're not
Hmm.
designing a balloon. We're not designing a system to hold work. We're designing system to move work, right? So we want
Hmm.
movement, kind of going back to business, right? A balloon where you fill with air, fill with air, with air, balloon feels really full. So that's the kind of the metaphor, I guess, for feeling busy. Because yes, you are busy, that you have a lot of work.
Ooh, Lord, girl, you
But
are
does it
stepping on my
create like
toe.
what's the does it it's not it doesn't create flow, it doesn't create the outcome. What it's going to create if you don't solve for it, it's going to explode, right? And there's no balloon, there's no air, right? You're going to have to start from scratch because and that's like a very simplistic but very sort of I like this example. It's right
Yeah.
because what happens if you don't design for progress, right? Because if you design for progress, you have intake and you have the output, right? You have to design the flow. You need to understand how things will flow through and how they're going to produce a business value for you. Um, right. So that's why those two are super critical, right? And then what, like how in and how out, and what is kind of that priority work that we just discussed.
I
So
love that. And that really keeps things kind of in alignment. Like you have decision points all along the way. Where does activate come in? So I see that that's where the architect comes in. Where does activate come in?
activation is when, so after we assessed and prioritized, right, and we kind of sat down and designed, we created an idea, we did design, ideated on how
Hmm.
the structure would look like to operationalize, right, that approach.
Right.
Again, in very simple terms, like what does that mean? It means that, okay, so you describe your process. Okay, when new work comes in, again, I come from the space of transformation and strategic initiatives, right? So my space is typically initiative and project work that starts and ends. But in business world, I stopped for business owners. Actually, it doesn't matter if it's project work or any other work. It's just work, right? It starts mattering if it's an enterprise level because you can actually have different teams
Right.
working on work we call it business as usual, right, using
Yeah.
corporate lingo versus initiatives and project management. But in if you're scaling business, if you're small business, if you're solopreneur, I think it's better to just be realistic and be like, hey, this is just work. At this point it doesn't matter. It's gonna be all me. It's gonna be
Well,
me
I
and
kind of
two
see
other
two areas
people.
in that work.
Yeah.
There's growing your business, and then there's the
Mhm.
running your business, like you said.
Running your business,
Right.
yes.
Um,
Yes, exactly.
yeah.
Exactly. However, I do still feel like, well, you can definitely, tag it. Yeah. So you can just color code those initiatives, growing
Hmm.
your business and maintaining your business, just to see. However, this is my belief today. It might change in the future.
Yeah.
The thing is, it's almost like you have to have both. You have to do work, you have to invest your time and resources to maintain your business, obviously, right? Because if you don't do that, your business dies.
Absolutely.
However, you have to allocate your resources to grow your business because if you don't do that, it's the same outcome. Your business will die.
Absolutely.
So, by nature, I think there might be some differences of for example, to grow your business, the work might be unusual for what you usually do day to day, right? It might be doing something that's unconventional that's normally not on your, daily to-do list, right? So,
Right.
but at the same time, for this particular exercise, when it comes to strategy to execution, it really doesn't matter.
Hmm.
I see a lot of brain energy spent. Oh my gosh, it's like the number of conversations I've had about this. That's why I think it's important to kind of talk about it.
Yeah.
So the brain energy, the decision power, right? It's all resources. And when it comes to business space, it's money, right? So if we spend, an hour discussing what's a project and what's not a project, yeah, we can do that, but it's gonna spend, if you actually calculate how much you spent on it, right, in terms of hours of labor, you're
Mm-hmm.
like, oh my gosh, that's a lot of money. Like, do I want to pay the money to discuss this? Because at the end of the day, it's not the discussion about if it's a project or business as usual maintenance versus operational maintenance versus like growth, for example.
Yeah.
It's I think the most important is how do we get it, like, does it matter and how do we get it done?
Right.
At the end of the day, what we call it is not really important. I mean, we can, when we have a little bit more time, we can have that discussion. But if we were to prioritize how do we spend our valuable time and money on which decisions, I think the first decision doesn't matter. And then if the answer is yes, then the next question is how do we get it done? And that's that execution
Right.
space. And then if it doesn't matter, that's it. You move on.
You strike it off. Okay.
Strike it off. Yeah, and then kind of going back to your question, activate is actually an implementation, right? So when you take your when you take your blueprint, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you take the outputs of the architect phase, and then when you create an actual execution plan. Again, for more mature organizations, typically depending on what type of architecture they want to implement, it might be in practical terms, might be, hey, this is your 6 months implementation plan, and this is your scaling for, first year, second year, fifth year. That might be the activation plan. And then it's pretty much, how do all these ideas that we put in place and ideated on, how do we actualize them and how do we adapt them into our current business infrastructure? For solopreneurs, it might be, it's again, it's how it, so this is actually very important thought to keep in mind as you're moving through those is
Mm-hmm.
remember you were saying for your daily goals, you have, work, you have,
I ha- so it's really I put them backwards, but it's really personal. So I put me on top of my list first, anything that I
mhm,
need to do to meet my needs,
mhm,
life and relationships,
mhm,
right? So there's people that I need to show up for, there's things going
mhm,
on in my life that need to kind of happen, and then work.
mhm. And then
Those
there were two
three.
other categories you mentioned kind of later. What?
Cash, calm, capacity. To do those things, I need to prioritize what's going to get me to the cash first once I'm doing the thing, and then what's going to keep me calm, right? Because I have physical and mental health challenges, and do I have the capacity because of the chronic pain and fatigue, right? So,
So the key word which made my ears perk up when you were talking is capacity.
mhm,
Because when we create our vision
mhm,
and we create, even like when we do business plan, that's something that it's very it gets overlooked. So I would say just almost always
right.
that
That's
like that very very first kind of very high level. So when it comes to, when we talk about, big companies boardrooms, right, that's where, big strategy ideas take shape.
yeah.
Capacity, you have to think about capacity when you work on your list, right, when you create the sort of operational process for your own small business, right? What is my list? How long do I, like, is it just 3 items? Is it five items, right? So capacity, how does it make in? How does it make it out? So capacity is almost one of the top considerations that they need to be part of the equation,
Mhm.
because that's how we end up in burnout, right?
Absolutely.
When it comes to business owners or even, leaders of decision makers in the company, if you work for
Yeah.
one, it's very similar path that takes us to the burnout, is not being realistic about your capacity. When kind of bringing it back to your reality, Selena, and my reality as well, right? When we have to prioritize our health, we need to make sure, right? There sometimes we use the self-care. The the trap about with self-care, when we talk about self-care, is I think there is a perception of self-care being, and I know that that's not this perception that you share,
Hmm.
but in general, self-care is like, I don't know, on Instagram, if you look for it, it's like spa day, or I don't know, a retreat, going to the, and those are all beautiful things, but this is not what what we're talking about. We're talking about, so if you are a solopreneur, you are your main asset, you and your, IP.
Yeah,
And that means that your health relates directly to your business outcomes. And
absolutely.
it needs to be handled, it needs to be taken care of, and it needs to be protected the same way you would protect your business account and your bank. So the level of urgency, the level of importance is not less, even higher than any other business assets you will protect, right?
Right.
And think about, just in general, right? When you think about business assets, okay, like, well, for when we talk about business assets, we think about, insurance, contingency plans, allocating time, prioritizing, blah, blah, blah. So same would apply for our, health, physical, mental, overall
Right.
well-being, right? So that's, I kind of wanted to enrich, right? This definition of self-care, because we're not talking about, I mean, yes, we are. So a spa day might be as well, right?
Right.
Included.
Well, how you run your business
Hmm.
is probably how you're running your life. And how you're running your life is probably how you're running your business.
100% agree.
They go hand in hand because you are it.
You are it. Yes, yes. Okay,
Absolutely.
I have to say, okay, I have to tell you this thought that I had this morning as I was thinking about our
Sure.
conversation. Oh my gosh, this is so cool that you bring it up, because that was exactly the thought that I was walking around with. And it kind of came to, um, how, like, back to my tree analogy, like there's
Hmm.
10 branches.
I,
It's kind
I'm
of,
I'm always going to remember this about you, this tree.
oh gosh, oh God. If I had, I'm in Vegas, so there are not a lot of trees to climb here, but whenever there's a tree that I can climb, I will climb it. Um, so, okay, so kind of going back to your statement of you run your business as you run your life. And I was thinking about, the core of my work is clarity, right?
Hmm.
Clarity, prioritization. And then now I was thinking, just if you read the news on, like, the overall, like, the state of the, um, just different companies, deployment, so there have been tons of layoffs everywhere, right?
Yeah.
So this, big companies, big companies with big structures, right? With, several project management offices, with,
Hmm.
full staff of, I don't know, just you name it,
Right.
data analysts, or, and then, and it's not the first year, right? It has been a trend for forever now, right? So there is, this, waves of layoffs. And I started thinking, I was like, oh my gosh, this is so consistent with, again, the overall kind of culture, how we are living our life. And this is just observational, kind of philosophical, right? We
Hmm.
all know that we live in consumerism culture is kind of the
Absolutely.
default, right? And I know that even on personal level, a lot of us are looking for strategies to manage that, right? To make our life a little bit more fulfilling, because overconsumption obviously doesn't feed the, needs of humanity. And now, as humans, right? As humans, we seek, safety, acceptance, other people, right? People like people, etc. Right? So it's just, again, that misalignment from the philosophical sort of humanity perspective.
Yeah.
But then if you think about it, if you have a lot of resources, you would overconsume talent as well, right? So you would overconsume everywhere, right? Including, right, like if you run a company, you would overconsume talent. you would overhire, you would over going back to my balloon. Remember my balloon
I
example?
could see that if it actually that thought crossed my mind when you were talking about like the different boards and building these definitions and operational models. Um, I would imagine too. I haven't run a board or been on a board, however, they're the visionaries in the pie in the sky and things, so that it's not necessarily their role to be thinking about capacity and things like that. And so what does that look like when it trickles down, right? Because
Yeah.
they've set this vision, and in most organizations from what I've seen, it's like this came from the top, so we just got to get it done,
So
and
I
they
want
don't
to challenge
consider
you
the capacity.
on this too, and not necessarily I want to challenge you, but I
Yeah,
want to
you're
challenge
fine.
the statement, right?
Hmm.
Something that you said, and it's true. This is something that it's an incident. Yeah, if you go and look at the mission statement of any board and how they operate, how those meetings are handled, and then C-suite. Yes, you can say, well, boards are, the visionary. They're supposed to, sort of react to the market. They're high thinkers, the big decisions. That's what they expect to.
Yeah,
However, you know how we always like in our effort to create clarity, we are always forced to challenge status quo, right? This is something that's, this always has been done this way, or it worked, right? Like don't break something that's working. Um, I would apply the same to the top, like the top decision making process. Who is
absolutely.
to say if we see the decisions that are made without considering capacity create air, it creates effort, it creates business, but it doesn't produce results. And again, just why do we care? Why do we even care if there are any results? We care because we want our business to grow and succeed. We want to continue serving our customers, right? Depending on what your business is, who your business is serving, that's the essence. That's the essence that the way we serve our people,
Right.
right? For us, it's our communities. For financial institutions, right? Could be customers, members, right? So the core is we want to continue being relevant. We want to continue providing value, right? And enriching life of people with our gifts, right?
Absolutely.
So if me as a decision maker, if I realize that in order for this to happen, I need to start considering capacity when I make my big decisions, I'd better do that.
Hmm.
An example of that, because all of us have to adjust and pivot and learn new things and incorporate new things into how we do things.
Right.
Right? And I think, if you're on a board of directors, you are not immune to that as well, right?
Absolutely.
You have to change as well. And then I'm saying this because now you've this conversation. I was on the closing panel in one of the conferences recently,
Hmm.
and one of the conversations there, and again, was all about decision making and what expertise do actually board members need to have now in this world that changes every day is AI, right?
Yeah.
Artificial intelligence came up and technology, and like in that particular conversation was a lot about data and security and AI.
Yeah.
Right. And the notion was like, yeah, the world is changing, and that's the board. You don't have to be an expert, right? You don't have to know how to build an agent or like program
Right.
a certain tool,
Right.
but you do as a decision maker, it's your responsibility to have a certain level of understanding deep enough to make informed decisions. So, and kind of my challenge as far as capacity considerations comes from the same place, is
Right.
that if you know that your vision will burst as an overfilled balloon with no results and just disruption without transformation,
Hmm.
that's a sign for you to reconsider. It's like, yeah, maybe we do need some data points about capacity when we make those decisions.
And if this is the same conference that I was listening in on, that you were at, which was just Chef's Kiss, wonderful, by the way. I love the way that you were shaking it up in a in a room full of men, girl. Just saying. And I love too what you identified was someone has to have the authority to say no. Absolutely have to have the authority to say no. And I think about that in my own business. I've got to have the guardrails to tell myself, no, girl, no, we cannot do that right now. So I feel like even I have a board of directors. I think that's important. My internal personal board of directors, however, but they know me well enough and someone that I can talk through. I have my mentors and my coaches. It's very important, because other people can see things that you can't see. They have other information that you may not necessarily have.
100%, 100%. But you still maintain the responsibility of knowing your own capacity, right? So
Mhm.
that's my point, that the final decision will be made, right? Then because again, right, the we we have multitude of perspectives for a reason, right? And it enriches our own understanding
Right,
of the decision at hand. However, you have to be realistic, right? You are the one who knows your business best. You're the one who knows your capacity best.
right.
You're the one who knows your customer best, right?
Absolutely.
So that's why, it will go without saying, right? When even if you go to board directors for a decision, you would 100% consider you will have your customer in your mind when decision is made, right? So why couldn't it be capacity as well?
Absolutely. I love that. I love that. I love that. I love that. Well, we have really deep dive into this
I love it.
conversation. I love it. The question that's stuck in my mind around this is still around you being in this space and how did you get here? And I'm known as a disruptor out in these streets. So
I know.
I'm curious on your journey, what did you have to disrupt?
What I have to strap. Oh gosh, so many things. By the way, I still have I should have worn it because that everyone on the internet, I have this beautiful t-shirt that Celine sent me. It says Disrupt Her. Ah,
Like
it's a
this
lovely t-shirt. Yes, 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 this one. This one. I love that t-shirt. It's so good. It's brilliant, right? Because you design it with your customer in mind, right? And then your customer wants, little fitted, a little, longer. So it's
one? Oh
beautiful.
yeah, yours is super cute.
Oh my gosh, I love it. The thing is that my dog is shedding like crazy right now because it's, summer season and all my black clothes are covered
Oh no.
in in her light fur. So, anyways, it's a challenge. It's a seasonal thing. Anyways, disruption. Oh my gosh, disruption requires so much courage. That's something that comes, I don't know, it just came to mind first.
Hmm.
I know that
What courage were you required to disrupt something? Tell me
so
all
one of
about
the
it. Tell me all
things.
about it.
So just example. Okay, so let me, because I was thinking about like business examples, but I think you're actually asking me for a
Yeah,
little bit more of a personal. Um,
the
I like
disruptor in you. I'm asking about
disrupt her in me. I personally I love safety and stability. Like, and that's one of the reasons why my brain, it's probably, building systems is one of the coping mechanisms that I
yeah,
developed. Um, which is again brought me a great value, right? Through the mind has enriched my life significantly, and lives of others. So I'm not. It's beautiful to be a system thinker, but
absolutely.
being a system thinker for me also means that I love analysis, right? I love collecting data before I make decisions. Which for me, the dark side of it is analysis paralysis, right? Like I'm the type of person who can not anymore. I think I'm becoming way, way, way better at it because, obviously I'm applying it to my own business, to my own life, and I'm, applying it. I've been applying it in my professional work as well.
Yeah.
I coach about analysis paralysis. So disrupting, right? Creating a little bit of a disruption how I make decisions.
Mm,
And one thing that helped me with that is, well, first of all, I've been working with you for many, many years, right? So I know that you and I, in our work, we went through iterations of, creating clarity. I love your clarity calculator tool, things of that nature. So for me, being okay, making a decision without over analyzing, right? I call it, um, actually, I see that a lot in business people,
Yeah.
right? Just over analyzing and trying what I call boil down the ocean. And again, I
Mm-hmm.
think it comes for me and for many who I work with and observe in their business work, comes from that notion of thinking big, right? Hey, think big, dream big, right? We great, right? We've been told that for so many years, and it was like, yes, we are thinking big. The dark side of it is when we make decisions, we try to boil down the ocean pretty much, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what that means is a metaphor of just doing too much when we don't have to. Like, no, this what needs to be true for us to make one step forward, right? We're not
Mm-hmm.
planning uh, for 1,000 years ahead. So, and for me, my personal disruption was that constantly asking myself a question: what needs to be true? Da 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 da. And then also being okay with not boiling down the ocean. And how do we do that? How do we know that we're not boiling down the ocean? Is again, what's the definition of done, right?
Mm-hmm.
Those are universal questions. What needs to be true, and the definition of done, right? So, Selena, you mentioned in your own world that you rely on the advisors, right? You have your own internal board of directors, and you ask for perspectives and things like that, which is really valuable. And it's tremendously important to have that. What do we call it? Social capital, right? So
Mm-hmm.
that's that social capital and social network. However, on the other side, that to balance it out is again to make a decision what needs to be true, right? Do I need to really consider, five other perspectives, or do three perspectives of, three trusted people, or, if it's a decision about, for example, going to a new market, is it really like someone you need to ask who actually understands, how
Right.
markets move? So anyways, for me, it was disrupting my own tendency of over analyzing things, and then just becoming a business owner myself was a huge disruption. And as you know, it's not the decision that was I made. Oh gosh, it took me years. It was years in the making.
Yes.
Um, Years in the making to do this pivot, because what I created for myself is a very secure, very comfortable corporate life.
Mm-hmm.
It was amazing, right? So amazing from the perspective of having the notion of security. However, the disruption, like the core of disruption for me, was realizing that that notion of security was false.
Yeah. I remember.
And I think a lot of women who open their own businesses and practices recently, I've talked to, that was kind of their main why. A lot of us kind of had the same aha moment where, again, by default, um, you know, working for a large company with stable, with long track record, with, all of this
Mm-hmm.
was considered to be, a safe, consistent um, path that you can pursue with confidence for many years. I think one of the other things that I had to consider is my own. I don't know. I have my grandmother is my big role model.
Yeah.
But again, we have to remember that she had a beautiful, very rich career. She was an engineer, and she, run the whole like factories, and she was amazing. She had a
Mm-hmm.
really fruitful, very consistent, very linear career.
Mm.
And I like when I was growing up, she was like, I wanted that for me. I was like, yes, I'm gonna go to university. I'm gonna get, I've always been, top student, because that's like in my mind, that was the belief that was very common, and was part of, obviously, one of the beliefs in my belief system is that
Yeah.
if you do all these things right, you study well at school, then you go to university, then you get, you perform really well, overperform, right? Over deliver
Right.
in your first job, and then you get promotions, and then that's how you grow. That's how you have sustained career and career continuity. Gosh, in the world that we live in, it's not possible anymore. It's not possible anymore, and it's part of the disruption for me was it was like layers, right? It was
Yes.
realizing that that path that I believed it was actually like it took me a while because it took me a while to accept the fact that it's no. Just look at what's true. Like look around yourself and see what actually true. Is
Right.
this true, right? And just having the courage to accept it because for me, uh, dealing with and kind of revisiting and revamping those core beliefs that you learn from the childhood. Okay, so this
Yeah.
is what successful like life looks like. This is what good work ethic looks like. This is right, like different beliefs that we have that we kind of absorb through,
Mm-hmm.
family and society. Rah, rah, rah. That was uh, that was super scary to dismantle because to create something new, right? You have to dismantle the old, right? You have to challenge it. You have to, and it's messy, especially if it's core belief that directly for me was connected to the sense of safety and security for me and my family, and just ability to plan my life. Oh
Yes.
gosh, it was incredibly painful and very scary. How I did it? Well, there are several things that had to be true for me to do it. Well,
Mm-hmm.
first, I want to say, the support, right? That social capital that we talked about earlier, right? I know that you and I work together on this. I've engaged in other communities with women who were opening their businesses, entrepreneurship communities. Through my work, right, I advise and mentor solopreneurs and scaling companies. Just becoming part of that community and becoming part of that cohort, right,
Yeah.
of people kind of stepping in the same direction, dealing with similar fears or similar challenges. That was part of the equation. Another part of the equation if is the planning, of course. As a planner, as a strategy to execution, tree climber, professional tree
Yeah,
climber.
I love that.
I had to have a plan. So I had to size up the tree and kind of map out the branches and see, okay, what needs to be true for me to have the sense of security, to have, all these things that I needed for me to be able to move forward. And then, executing the plan. Yeah,
Absolutely.
that's sometimes disruption has a connotation of something that happens suddenly, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like an earthquake, for example, or volcano eruption. But in reality, even with earthquakes or volcanoes, even though for us it's like from the outside, right? To the outsider, it might look like, oh, it's so sudden, right? She just
Right.
pivoted. She did this, this, and this, and then all of a sudden she does this, this, and this. Right? Disruption typically for outsiders seem like right, like a one-time event. Well, in reality, similar to like an earthquake or a volcano eruption, there are a lot of things that happened underneath
Right. Underneath. Yeah.
to move, like for years, right? To get things in line, to move things, to move those. Um, I can't remember the English word for what I'm trying to say, but
You,
I'm still thinking about earthquakes,
I know.
how the plates have to move,
And
and
when I think
anyways,
about
a
your
lot of
journey,
internal work.
what I felt like really helped unlock and put a lot of things in perspective for you because you are such a planner and everything was the clarity calculator. Because you could hypothesize, you could kind of play with the numbers, you could really see what safety looked like for you when we built those dream areas that needed to be true for you. It allowed you to ideate. It like really gave you a place to put those thoughts, those ideas, and those dreams. And I am grateful that you allowed me to witness and come along on that journey for you because people can see it in you. but like you said, it takes a minute for it to kind of get to you.
Manifest
And
itself.
I could see little glimpses unlocking here and there. And I thought it was so funny when you would say to me, I would say something to you and you'd shrug it off at first. And then it'd kind of be
Okay.
simmering a little bit. And then you'd come back and you'd be like, hmm,
Yes.
now I see what you mean. You know, we did a lot of beautiful, beautiful work. Although you came to me for business coaching, I think we touched on all three of the levels that I really specialize in, right? The mindset, the holistic life, because it's really about the whole woman, and
Yeah.
you're a whole beautiful woman, and you have so much to offer to the world. And now to witness you stepping into all that you've been called to do is beautiful. I feel that that was the crust of some of the disruption, right? Because during that season, you were challenging all of those things that you talked about, right? It's like in order for me to have what I desire over here, now that I've got this picture and I've got the roadmap to see, oh, that it's doable, right? And we accomplished so much. I'm so proud of you. I don't know if you want to mention any of the accomplishments that you made because you did that, girl. You did that. So you have space for that. I don't know if there's anything else that I did. Well, the things that I do want to touch on is
Huh?
how can people find you? Where are you? What you got going on? Tell us all the tea. What you need us to know.
All right. I will tell you all the tea.
Yes.
But before I tell you all the tea, though, I do want to kind of go back to what you were saying. So I was, as we were talking about disruption, and for me, right, what did I need to have in place to make my own pivot? Was one of the things that I did not mention, but you with the clarity calculator is for me was very important to have a very kind of like a very personalized why, right? And that's kind of what um, the space that clarity calculator created for me because yes, with for us or for me, right? I was seeking certain, I mentioned safety, for example, or consistency, right? But what I didn't mention, which was that spark and that result in explosion, is I remember that in our very first conversation, even before I started working on Clarity Calculator, was I came to you and I said I want agency. Like I want all the agency. I want the agency. I want the ownership. I want to own my IP. I want to have agency over my decisions. I want to have agency of who I hire, who I fire, the type of clients I work with, right? Like I was like agency. I want
Yes.
agency. Um,
And there was a catalyst to that that tipped that off. Did you realize? Hmm, this is some bullshit.
So yeah, so the that was my one of the most like energizing, right? Energizing wise. And then even if my like to this day, whenever I have doubts or whenever, because it's never easy, regardless of which path you decide, just doing things and getting to your goals is work, right? And depending on how where you go and we all face different challenges and it's not always fun, but that's something that clarity calculator, having those sort of hopes and dreams and wants, right? Like, oh my gosh, I passionately want this, and this. Um, that is actually super helpful to have in front as a reminder of why, right?
Mm,
Because sometimes it's like, well, this sucks and this is bullshit. I want to go back into my like safe cave and under the
right,
blanket, right? And then I was like, well, I mean, we've been there, but there's a reason why it didn't work.
right.
So, yeah, the clarity calculator was, and I believe it's going to be individual for everybody,
Right.
depending on, different people would put different things on there. But for me, seeing those things, um, just consistently, right, continue providing me with that energy boost and why, right? Because
Mhm.
work is hard and kind of tying back to strategy to execution, right? That's why we need to keep that connected because the actual work needs to be connected with your strategic why. Why does your business exist? Why? why do you need to do things that you're doing?
Right. Absolutely.
And then as far as, just you were like, hey, there were so many wins, right? I mean, you worked with me for a long time, right? It's in the coaching, and there were the ups and downs, and some I really like tangible results, right? The deliverables. One of the things that I mentioned early in my introduction is my LinkedIn learning courses, right? So and actually, so as a call to action at the end, I'm gonna cover it, but I do want to start with by thanking everybody who was with us. If what we talked about resonated,
Yep.
you can go on my website. I don't know, do you want me to read the website? It's yourprojectdoctor.com. And there, I have a couple of books there available for you as a gift. It's a free download. The
Yeah.
one, if you are interested, if you're a business owner interested specifically in creating clarity, if you're like, well, oh my gosh, I feel busy, like every single day I'm doing stuff. And I was like, I don't know if any of it matters. Like I feel
Mhm.
busy, but I'm not seeing results. So if that's the space you're in, I would recommend go look at my strategic project management for business owners. That's the name um, for the book. It's on my website, yourprojectdoctor.com. You go to the store and then you'll be able to download the book. I think it'll ask you for like an email address because it needs to send you the link.
Okay.
And then um, there's another book there that I personally that's where I started with because it's all kind of about decision making structure. It's called Get Funded, Get Going, and it's pretty much
Mhm.
a book about how to well, create a business case, but essentially business cases, how do you present your ideas so in a way that a decision can be made to move forward. And that's available as well as a that one I think right now is on sale. So
Okay. What is
and
that?
also on my website. But if you want to follow my work, like actively, I actively post my social media of choice is LinkedIn. So please go find me there by my last name, Natasha Kasimtseva, Kasimtseva. I post on LinkedIn regularly. I also post about any happenings, right? I'm going to post about this on there. Um, there there's an event coming up actually tomorrow on
Mhm.
Thursday. It's on LinkedIn, and I can share it here with you too. It's going to be also live on YouTube from at 6 p.m. it starts. It's actually um, a talk that I created specifically for scaling businesses, small business owners, and startups about three very simple to apply strategies um, to scale your business. It's for businesses who are working to get to their first million. So that one I'll be presenting in person tomorrow at 6 p.m. Pacific time. But again, this will also be live on YouTube, and I think they'll probably have a recording. It's with a Startup Nevada.
I love that with Startup Nevada. And all of this information will be linked in the description so that you can easily reach out to Natasha. Any questions? We're still always going to have the chat open on the YouTube channel as well. So I'll be checking in, and so will she to respond to any of your questions. So make sure you drop them below.
Yeah.
Anything else? So you've written your own books. You've also taught courses on LinkedIn. What are some other tools or podcasts or books that were helpful along your journey? Any go-tos?
Well, I really appreciate your show. I love your podcast and your show. And anytime you and I get to talk, it's always like some kind of revelation. It's funny because I was like, I'd be after this, after we record this, I'm sure I'll be reaching out to someone who's like, oh my gosh, you asked me this question, and then that made me think about this, and then it's always fascinating experience to
Oh,
share space with you. And I'm very thankful for you to giving me this, stage to talk to your audience. There are a lot of books that most of the books that I read lately are about strategy and execution, and
mhm,
they're industry specific. So currently, I mentor a couple of founders of startup organizations,
mhm.
and then but for that, I rely primarily on in-person conversations because I find that especially with someone who just starting their business, the level of maturity, right? Business acumen it is varied, right? It's very you could be working with someone who has a lot of business acumen and come from corporate, for example, building I don't know marketing consultant company versus someone who is just starting from scratch and then they
Right.
just really need the basics. So I rely on my teacher's heart, as I mentioned. My very first job was an elementary school teacher teaching English.
I
So I have to remember to be very humble and to be a listener first, and then advisor second, because the type of advice that I give, type of guidance really depends on the pain points a specific business has.
love. Hmm.
Um,
That's really
let's
good.
see yeah, if I think of any specific book I can recommend and share with your audience, I'll post in the comments. But yeah, it's just a shameless plug. Please, come check out my courses on LinkedIn Learning. I am working on some content and courses to post specifically on my website to be
Hmm.
available to my followers and my audience that way, but this is still in the works, and I'll keep you posted. Again, if you go follow me on LinkedIn, you'll be in the know. Or if you go to my website, there's a pop-up there where you can leave your email, and this way you'll be on my email list. And then once new books or free templates or episodes get released, you'll be notified.
I love that. Do you still publish a newsletter?
I'm thinking about revamping this. So the short answer is no, but if anybody wants to read the previous issues of my newsletter, they're there. I'm considering the possibility of revamping the newsletter. Currently, I've been keeping in touch with my audience by just posting regularly on LinkedIn. I post on Tuesdays and Thursdays.
Okay.
And so if you want to make it part of your daily routine to check in on what Natasha is posting, please. Again, on LinkedIn, it's Tuesdays and Thursdays. That's kind of has been my cadence, and I think I might just continue doing that, and maybe do a newsletter maybe monthly.
Oh, okay. That
It's
sounds awesome.
it's something that I still kind of going back to my strategic goals versus the work line items that I put on my list, right? It's always how do I, right? If something goes in, something needs to come out.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, you're doing fabulous work with Startup Nevada, and you're on the speaking circuit, so they can
Yes, I love
find
it.
you in all the spaces and places. I love that for you. Is there anything else you'd like to share before we go?
Yes, I want to speak to the audience if and specifically to decision makers, right? If you're a decision maker in your own life, if you're a decision maker in your own small business, if you're a decision maker in the department you run for a bigger company, my words, if I were to share just two things or two takeaways,
Hmm.
um, simple and small. Those just kind of sit with those two words and think about what that means for you in terms of making your life lighter, making your work have more clarity, and getting to the place where your effort directly connects to results.
That part. Well, all right. So I have one final question for you, darling.
Mhm.
Do you have any questions for me?
All right, how can we do it? Can we do it again? Why can I come back? What's your pipeline?
You are always welcome back. If there's new information that you want to share, this audience is here for you. Absolutely. It is our goal to help amplify your voice as well, because my audience gets served as well. She's Ms. I got time for everybody except myself,
Yes.
right? So these conversations helps her see herself and know that, oh my gosh, these things are possible. Oh my gosh, this person did survive disruption. Oh my God, this person was overgiving and overdoing and overthinking also. It's not, it's not just serving your audience, it also serves my audience that you are here. So
Yeah.
by all means, any anything that you'd love to come on and share, you are an alum, please feel free. Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely.
I
So
do have
thank,
a question, another question for you.
yes.
And then like a little side note. So going back to disruption, and I know that we know already talked about my disruption, but one thing that I learned from you and the phrase that kind of sits with me for years now is um, doing things on your terms,
Hmm.
right? So I think for me, the biggest takeaway for from biggest sort of lessons learned from you, and there are so many, but this one that kind of um, came to me right now is disruption doesn't have to be like sudden or something that is done to you, right? There is a way to do it on your terms, and that's the way to do it, right?
Hmm.
Engineer your own disruption.
Hmm.
Disruption has to happen. Just be the leader. Be the leader of your own disruption.
I call it sacred disruption, right? It's your intentional.
Intentional. And then it comes from your own deep within you, right? That I know that you do a lot of sort of mindset work and things like that. That's why it's necessary to do that, because to do anything on your own terms, you need to first understand what your own terms are. Yeah, so that's it's a deep work, and it's sometimes uncomfortable work because it challenges you to deep to look deep into yourself and to uncover things that many of us never really done or had time or capacity to do. So that's very important work. And then my final question for you, Selina, is what resonated the most with you from this conversation?
Oh my gosh, how much you've grown. You are not the same woman that I met in 2016. We're 10 years in, girl.
Oh my gosh, yes,
Yes.
2016. Oh,
Yes.
that's amazing.
I
I
think it
still
was like the
remember. I
day
still
before
remember
your
our first
birthday.
conversations.
You do? Oh, wow.
Oh, 100%. My cubicle was covered in sticky notes and
Yes.
then like little printouts of business process flows, like
Yeah.
Visio diagrams. Yeah,
And
that
we
was
sat
our
right
conversation
right
starter.
next to each other.
Yeah.
We celebrated your birthday, I remember, on the first day. That was kind of cool.
That was amazing. It was delicious cake. We had like bundt cake.
Yep.
That was beautiful. Have really vivid memories of our times together.
Yeah, we've had a lot of wonderful memories, and I'm in so much awe and gratitude of you in when you came to me for the coaching and the words that so your words impact me also, right? Because you were like,
Tell me how tell me which words.
these in particular, because I just started in the coaching journey where it was becoming a profession. You've seen me be in the food and beverage space while
Yes.
still working a full-time job and all of the things. And then when you had decided that you were ready for a business coach, you said you knew that there was only one person that could
Mhm.
be, and that was me. And I was like, oh my God, I didn't even know what to do with that. I'm like, oh my God, because that never even kind of crossed my mind. I know you saw me as a mentor, but I wasn't sure that you were ready because of so many other, things that had taken place. And I knew, I feel like I know you innately, and the tenderness and all of the things. So it was like, oh my gosh, she's asking, she's ready. She's ready. It was just beautiful, beautiful to watch. And that always stuck with me, um because it was affirming for me also, because I was also realizing, like, this is what I would do for free. This is my calling. This is what I was meant to absolutely be doing. And then Midwest Way is the vision that I was called to birth. So here we are. We're coming full circle. and
Circle.
and to see you flourishing and pursuing, You're a project doctor. This is absolutely what you were called to do, y'all. If you need to get your shit together in your business, she is your girl. Like she said, if you're floundering and you're stuck in indecision, it's because clarity changes everything, right? It helps you stop failing because everything starts with a decision. Nothing
Everything.
can start until you decide, either to decide, hey, I need a coach. Oh, I need help with this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to stop doing that. It all starts with a decision. When you make a decision, then you can take the next step. And like you said, we want to boil the ocean. Well, you can't boil the ocean until you decide which ocean.
Yeah.
And then
Just
that
take a
determines.
little bucket. Just take a little bucket of that ocean water and just boil that first.
Mm-hmm. I, I love how we both have always been able to kind of help and support one another in numerous ways. There's so many things that show up for me um, in our friendship. Our friendship and our business relationship is just chef's kiss for me. It's wonderful. I love seeing you flourish, and I
Thank you.
can't wait. I can't wait until you make that first million. You know, I already told you you're going to be a millionaire, and she's going to help others become millionaires. That's one of our goals that we have in common.
Yes.
Absolutely. Well, hopefully I answered that question.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you.
You are probably my longest guest that I've had on the
Oh,
show. We had so much to talk about. And I want people to know because this is not necessarily an easy subject to kind of talk about, right? Because you got to go in the weeds, you got to be honest with yourself. You got to really decide, is this a business or is this a hobby?
mm,
Like you said, make the decisions to prioritize, what stays and make the decision to determine what needs to come off the list. I'm
yeah.
going to go and do this for myself. This was a great reminder for me to get out my pencil and paper and get back to the basics and just really look at things. So I'm very happy about that in this conversation. Until next time, y'all, you know what I want you to do? I want you to take self love care.
So